Okay, this is tutorial 2, and this is going to show you how to hook up your GUI with actual code so that these buttons do things and stuff. And this is a little bit more laborious than designing the GUI itself, but I'll go through it in the way I normally would code it, and we'll see what happens. And eventually I want to be actually calling a method that does an HTTP post when this button login is clicked, and it'll go and talk to the server, passing their name and that over, and that'll hopefully authenticate with the server, and then we'll have the login screen working. And I probably won't touch these buttons yet because I don't know what they do, but let's get started. Right, so the XML briefly that we made last time is all there. Didn't have to hand code any of that, which is nice. Some of the names will have to change probably at some point, but so the first thing you want to do is make an activity for your login screen. Now this is going to be a little bit different than normal, because the way I'm going to work is to use my own. It's got my own toolkit here, so I usually actually inherit from what I've made a superclass of an activity called Silver Activity, and it extends Sherlock Activity because this is using action bar Sherlock. And I do this because there's a lot of stuff I don't want to have to repeat in every activity, as actually the activity lifecycle is quite a nice idea, but there's just so many repeated things you end up with doing the same code over and over again. So I made this superclass to try and stop that. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm always reusing bits of code I've already written, so I'm going to go into a past project and find the simplest instance of a activity to save a lot of time. Let's have a look for one. See, this is a very simple activity and it extends my Silver Activity, so this is probably what I'll start with. So I'll literally copy all of that, and I'll explain it in a minute, and close the one you're copying from, because if you get confused and you start editing other code, then you can get into trouble. And what do I want to call it? I'll call it login activity. Press enter. I'll get rid of this one. This was generated by Eclipse when I set up the project. Now the first thing you should do after you paste in the code from the other one is make sure it's added to the manifest. Don't use a manifest, that's annoying. Well, you can if you want, but I don't. And we'll declare one. I've got a line already set up here waiting, so I'll just change that login screen activity. And it's forced to port right there, and it's applying a theme that may or may not change, but that should work. Then you can go to this. So because I've taken it from the wrong project, it's imported the wrong thing, so delete them. For the minute, let's just get rid of all of this so we can get rid of the compiler errors. Okay, it hasn't. Let's just check exactly the top of the class, and the other one we did. Yes, all you have to do is extend Silver Activity. But this is not real Android. You don't have to extend Silver Activity if you don't want to. Just extend activity in real life. But I'm just sick of doing the same thing over and over again, so I made that solution. And get the imports right. Right, so that's mine. And like I say, this is just a subclass of an activity, and I've called these on resume X, on pause X, on restart X. The real ones don't have an X on them, but if you go to the superclass, you see what I've done is I have this little method here, which is just an underscore, takes a string, and that prints out error. That prints out stuff to your console, and I use the tag my app so I don't get all the nonsense from Google OS coming in. And I do this .get class, so you know which class is saying what, and then you end up with some sort of output like you see here: splash activity, loads of hashes, and then the word you put in. And then I take the real on stop, on pause, on resume, and all of them, and I just put a call to my other one in, and then I do a little print before and after, so I can see when every method's getting called, exactly when and in what order. And the reason for that is the Android lifecycle does get a little bit confusing, and I like to know when things are happening. Hopefully that's all clear. If not, don't know. Right, so first thing we want to do is set the content view, and this goes to the page itself. So we take the name of the page. What I normally do is simply two seconds, I'm just setting these videos to private, in fact, for the meantime. Anyway, till the NDA wears off. Get the name of the file that you want, copy that. And now you put it in here and delete the .xml. So that should go to the screen. The thing is, I can't demonstrate this because I'm not going to use the Android emulator. I'm going to use a real device, so I'll just have to talk about what's happening on the screen. Import your R, and now I want to link this activity up so it actually gets called, because my main activity is in fact splash activity, and this doesn't inherit from silver activity, inherits a normal one, but there's a special reason for that. It doesn't need an action bar and all the rest of it. So anyway, I've got my own splash activity which I bring from project to project, and I'm not going to explain all this, but it just goes to the splash screen, and then it does whatever it needs to do, sets up preferences, checks a few things about the device that we might want to know, density and all that, and then it calls a method in an async task, which is basically a thread that goes off and does whatever networking need to happen behind the splash screen. And usually that is the case, but I think in this app there's nothing happening behind the splash screen. So what we want to do is, I'll comment this out, this is my old code, this bit. Now I don't need to do that anymore, but there will probably be, I always make a class called info holder that downloads and stores any data in it, and stores it statically so you can get to it anytime you want. So you know what I'm going to do, actually I'm going to steal info holder from my old project, although I'm a bit worried about that because there is so much in this which is project specific that it's actually ridiculous. I'm going to have to rip a lot of stuff out, I guess. So really, in a way, I should just make a new info holder. Which is what I'll do, and I'll base a lot of it on the old one. So I'm going to go info holder. This could take a while, this tutorial, because I'm basically just going through doing what I'm doing, but I guess if anyone's interested they'll watch, and if not they won't, so I shouldn't worry about it. Well, I'm going to take the whole of info holder from here, I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to strip it down manually, I guess. So change the package name, save it, move any references to the old project, and there's going to be a lot of things in here that are completely irrelevant, and for now I'm just going to comment them out, which means this file is going to be absolutely messy as hell, but it also means that if later on I realize that they're requesting the same features I've already coded, then I can simply uncomment them, and otherwise I can just clean it up at a later date, which will never happen. No, it will happen, because this is actually a proper thing I'm doing. But it's easier to start with the other stuff and just get rid of the bugs, because I've got all these methods here, set tools and set context, and they all work with my toolkit, which I was mentioned before. Silver putty is something I'm designing to make Android easier to develop. I don't know if I'll ever release it or it'll ever be that good, but it's definitely good for me. And the import there, and just so this is where the networking gets done, and this is project specific, so I'm going to get rid of all of this. Right up to here. So what's going to happen is all that network is going to be missed out. It's still going to do this line, which is just my tools checking how much free space is available, and then it's going to call splash activity.endSplash, and in endSplash it's going to go, well, you can forget all that, that's just some debug shit. It's going to finish the activity, and that, how does that launch the next activity? Let's call this, I made this method move to new activity, again because moving to activities is a nightmare, it takes ages. Okay, so to write all the code, I mean. So at some point this, in onResume, the initial networking is done. Oh, I see. So you make info holder, now it executes this. Now I'm just going to comment this, because this will call move to new activity, and then in that method, when this state is hit, it'll finish the other one and launch an intent. But the first thing I have to do is, well, I keep a state of everything. I have states for every screen. I'm not sure if that is actually what you should be doing, but certainly if you're from a games background or a canvas painting sort of style coding background, you end up doing this to make a state machine to track everything. And you can see I've got all these states here from old projects, because this prefs.java, I use a file like this just to store all of the the random sort of variables you can change, like for example exit if no net is false, but I can change that to true, etc. So these states are actually all redundant in this project, and I'm going to get rid of them. And you can see these states here, I've got TP attached to them because that was another project I built based on the last one. So you can see I'm just constantly reusing stuff. We don't need any of them, and we don't need this, which is just another thing of mine. So we define a new state, which is going to be called the login screen. I'm going to call it activity login screen. I'm going to give this a 1. I'm going to copy it into the clipboard, and I'm going to go back to info holder, and then go to endSplash. Aha, okay, I took that out before, so this is what's going to start it. I'm going to change the activity there to login activity, and that's going to send a new intent based on login activity to the OS or whatever to start it. So it's going to start at the login activity. Bit confused about this in my own code here, but anyway, I'm going to get rid of that. Just set this up, and this should work. This should load up the splash screen and then lead to the login activity. And I usually keep all these messages here just so I know exactly what's happening. And I think it's about time we did a compile to see what actually happens. Sometimes you forget what you're doing, and you just launching it is a good way to remember what's going on. Right, so if it all compiles, well, it doesn't look like it will. Oh, how the hell has that got so many errors? Oh, I forgot I was stripping this down, wasn't I? Well, let's make sure splash activity is alright, yeah. Right, so I'm going to continue stripping this down briefly. Maybe I should pause this video while this is happening, I'm not sure. Or maybe I should just go through, comment it out. I guess this is just a general video on Android programming as such. One of the most annoying things about Java is that you can't nest comments, so if you've already used the /star comment like that, you can't do another one around it, and that really annoys me. But yeah, none of these methods are relevant to this project at all, and the only reason I'm leaving them in here is because when you do come across a nested one like that, you can do this, which can get annoying, but you can do it. And I'm only leaving them in here in case something happens that is almost identical, and I've wiped out the little infrastructure that I set up for it. Because it can be annoying just to redo something that you know you did last week, just because you tore it out, or you even having to reintegrate it can be annoying. So you might as well do this. Maybe you don't agree. If not, abuse me in the thing below. I'm gonna get rid of that because of the annoying way Java comments work. I'm really just going through here trying to take out absolutely everything that is irrelevant. And then you end up doing this because you don't want to take anything out because you may confuse yourself later. And there is a shortcut for this, but I can't remember what it is, to make every line appear with 2 slashes on it. I should learn that again. See, some of these files might be useful. Load file from internal storage, etc. Yeah, that shortcut would be very good right now, if anyone knows it. Delete from internal data, that could be useful. Any of these specific JSON ones won't, because JSON is pretty much always specific to a project, really, unless it's something like YouTube and you have to reuse it all the time. Oh, this is annoying. Yes, I really wish you could do proper nested comments on Java. It's my major complaint, ironically. Well, there's a few. Android as well. But probably won't cover that. I'm no language expert, so I'm not saying I could do better or if it's a bad idea or anything. Just personally for me, I need some things sometimes, and if I can't build it myself, it gets annoying. We don't need any of this. Alright. Again, I'm not ripping this out because some of this, the JSON might turn out to be very close to the stuff I've already done, so hell of a lot of this can be reused, no doubt. Hell of a lot won't, obviously. Some of these methods are definitely reusable though. This won't get called and developed before. So yeah, I definitely don't need this one, so I'm just going to delete this method. No, I'm still too scared to do that, which means I'm just going to take this and this. No, you got to keep things. You got to work in the best way you can so you don't mess yourself up really. And that if that is weird, you just do it anyway sometimes. How can I be bothered to do that? Yeah, I guess I will. Right, so there's the YouTube channel one. That often happens, so it's not a bad idea to leave this all in. And this will definitely be cleaned up later, and I'll remove all of these, otherwise people will start complaining of redundant code. So here we go to, you get to the point where things become useful again in my info holder thing. Now actually that's taught me something. I should separate these somehow. I'm constantly looking for a way to keep this toolkit of mine like ultra reusable to make money and save time. And maybe I'll have to think about that. But anyway, these are quite useful. Oh, I don't need the map yet anyway. There's a one for extracting zips. All useful stuff. Writing JPEGs. Directory checker. Now I know I don't need these, and I can't be bothered to do every line, so I'm just going to write something here as a hint to myself. If needed, copy from the old project. It'll never ever be needed, that's the thing. And this comment will get read by me and I'll be like, what the hell am I talking about? And I'll just delete all this redundant code anyway. But it's nice to leave yourself breadcrumbs, so to speak, so you can work out the mysteries of your own mind when you're going back to actually remove your code or clean it up or anything. What's happening now? Solid block of errors. Is it these? Unexpected end of document. Now this is a sort of annoying error that can hold you up for a while, just because of a dumb mistake because you weren't concentrating. What the hell? Yep, I'm going to have to undo now. Generally just go back until that error disappears and then... Oh. Was that it? Gone? Yep, it was that. Just get rid of that, I think. Oh no, not bad. Jesus. Well, that seems to have worked. Yeah, maybe I'm being ridiculous here, keeping all this code in, because it's literally not going to be used, but I just know the pain of trying to do something again and reintegrate what you've done. Right, I think that's it anyway. So, this file is largely commented out stuff, unbelievable amounts of it. And it's a mess, but at least it's done and it will maybe help, and if not I'll strip it out. And that's the last time I'm going to justify myself for that. And this needs declaring. Let's move it up the top, and then the next time I reuse this it'll be easier. Right. Now, I can't really remember what point I'm up to, but I'm just going to run the app and find out. Now what's happening here? Something on here. Okay, we removed the states. So let's just give it this first state we go to, which is probably the login. Probably the login screen. And we might change that later. So let's go back to the login activity. Yeah, and that's the last thing I want to do before I compile it. I keep a track of the state myself, so just give it the correct value, and state is actually declared in silver activity. Right, so that should technically load up, display my splash screen, and then show the login screen. Nothing ever works full time, first time, but oh, there's another bug. Oh yeah, okay, well this is for activities that don't stay on the back stack, but we'll talk about that another time. So it's compiled and it's working, and what I'm going to do now is launch it. So first of all I'm going to open this script which I've set up, which just will show every output from my mobile phone that comes from only my app, and then I'm going to look at one that shows from the whole phone, because it gives you better stack traces. So it's launching the app now. Takes its time. Oh no, this stupid thing popped up here. I'm going to click that and click OK. And then it ran and exited straight away, and that is because the splash screen disappeared straight away. That's because the time has been set low, very low, 1200, is that right? wondering if this is actually getting used. Doesn't look like it. It looks like it's coming from from here. I've just hard coded a 1 in there. And the handler is some sort of thread or something which you can post things on. So for now I'll just put a comment in. This is the splash delay. I like to leave a name of the project if I'm reusing so much. Now I'm going to set that to 5,000 milliseconds, that is, which means 5 seconds. I'm not even going to look at the output of the last one, I'm just going to run it again. So what happened there, the splash screen came up for 5 seconds and then vanished again back to the home screen because it crashed. And you can check the problem here. Now this is just ordinary logcat, ADB logcat. Login activity is not in the manifest supposedly. So we'll check the manifest. I remember adding it, to be honest. Because I've called it login screen activity there, and that one just says login activity. I don't think I need the word screen anyway, so let's get rid of that. I'll save it. Going to get a drink and then come back and explain. So 2 seconds. Okay, so I'm back. What happened? Right, we'll look at the my app version. This shows only what my app produced. And you can see it starts, does a bit of diagnostics in my splash activity. You can see where each call is made for ending the activity and creating them. Does the initial networking when I've removed the implementation of that because there is no initial networking yet. And then it says it's going to login activity, end splash, and then it goes into the login activity and does what we wanted. It sets the layout page, and that's when the code sits and waits. So it worked. And just to demonstrate this, I can take a screenshot of my app using DDMS in Eclipse, and there is what we have. It appears and it looks good. As you might see, the title is a bit odd. It says unknown. That's something to do with my silver activity again. What I have is in my superclass of all my activities, there is something that sets the title. I think it's called set title. I have a switch somewhere. Let's have a look. Here it is. Inside setup action bar Sherlock, just a method I made. And you got to add everything to here for get the title to work, which is a bit weird. Maybe I should rethink this right now, because that means that you haven't added project specifics to silver activity, which I don't really want. I want silver activity. I want my silver putty to be a standalone thing, really. So this is just me thinking off the top of my head, but I'm thinking that switch should actually happen in prefs, because this is project specific, and maybe the best way to do it would be to declare, every time I declare a state here, I also declare a title of the state. So I could call this string activity splash underscore title, and this would keep it specific to the project, and so that silver activity didn't need loads of messing around with. You can still keep the switch, or can you? No, you should call the home method. Well, let's just add that there, right? And we'll add one for, oh, that's splash actually, so you don't see a title on splash, so we'll just do that for now. And we'll change this to login. Now they may or may not want the title bar, the action bar on Android, but they have to have it really if they want to stay with ordinary convention, because we don't want buttons all over like the iOS, a button for going back and that. I think that's a bit silly. So this might annoy me at some point, this having to add a title every time as well, but it may also be a good solution. I'm going to add a method as well called public static string get title of state. And then I'm just going to go switch. So you pass in a state, and we switch that state, and if it is that one, then we return that. And we don't need the break because the return does it. And is this right? I don't know. Sometimes you make a decision and it doesn't feel right, but it doesn't matter. Change it later. Right. And always add a default here, because now you will have an unknown state sometimes. Just put a little error in there, and then at release time actually I just turn all these off by putting a boolean inside the little print method I've got. Why is that not working? Oh, it doesn't have its own draw print. Well, it needs one now, so let's just steal it from here. Every one of my classes contains one of these underscore things. I'm not, well, the silver activity has one of its own, but these have to be specific. And the main reason is just so I know what's getting called in by what class properly, and I can turn them on and off when I'm debugging for different classes. That should just work, and we have to make it static. And then you can't get this anymore when that happens, but we don't need this. We just want tag, which is prefs. Now that should work. Why doesn't that work? So we'll just return an error message here. And we know it's gone wrong. That shouldn't need anything here, but let's have a look. Public static string. Alright. That should compile. Okay, so it did work. You know, we don't really need this variable, to be honest. It's just going to confuse things. We can just return a hard-coded string back. Just return splash and log in. Does mean every time we add a new state, we need to define it in here, and I'll give myself a note about that. Then I won't forget. That'll work. And now the project specifics have been moved into here. I might even put a comment there that says project specifics. And they've been moved out of silver activity there. And instead of that method, what was it? Setup action bar Sherlock I had. Instead of this switch here, we can just literally go title becomes prefs dot get title of the state and pass the state in. And that should mean that instead of, and the whole point of doing this is because our title was unknown, so now it should work. And I feel like I've made that little class a little bit nicer. Every increment and every project I do, I improve it in some way, and I'll keep doing so. Maybe it'll be rewritten one day, but it's actually carried on life through from my J2Me days. Lots of it. It was called Alpha Putty back then. Okay, so the splash screen is on. It's appeared, and it still says activity unknown, which it shouldn't do. So we're going to check that. Why? X title becomes unknown, state equals 1. So it's because that switch is still happening. We don't want that switch at all anymore. Now that should work. Okay, the splash screen is on. And it jumped into the login screen. Looked a bit strange though there. I don't know why it seemed to jump in twice. I'm going to recompile just by putting one space and running again. But the title does say login now. So that did work. Yeah, it looks like it's going to it twice. I think I've added a line that I shouldn't have earlier when I was confused. Now you can see it's getting called twice. And I think it's because well, first of all I'm going to put that down to back to the pref stop splash delay, which is shorter and I don't have to wait every time. I'm going to take that out. Okay, that worked. And the screen now looks like this, with login at the top. And we're ready to start. When I push the email text field, the keyboard pops up. When I push the password one, the password one pops up, and they work like ordinary text fields. So what we want to do now is take the input and pass it to the server. So still a fair way to go, I guess. Right, let's get started then. Now, this is the point where you've got to make sure that everything is named properly. So we'll go back in here and we'll make sure that these have the right names. Text view 1 should say email TV. What? No, got that wrong. What am I talking about? I'm obviously getting tired. What? Email address edit text. Ah, okay, what am I talking about? Get confused. I'll just change that to anything. Doesn't matter for now. Right, this is what I meant. Right, email address ET, password ET. Let's set this button as well to login button. While we're at it, we'll set these ones to call that Facebook button, and the other one was free or something, wasn't it? Free, so we'll call that free button. Now, I've got a plugin that'll help me speed up this quite nicely. So you go back to your login activity, and you right click and you go to you go down to the file you want to use, right? Login screen, right click, and you click fast layout and generate activity. And if you don't have this plugin, you'll have to go and find it if you want it. What this does is it copies all of the things from your XML. You don't have to waste time typing them all out and getting the IDs. So as you can see, it's declared each instance for me, and it even gives you a way to initialize them. So you take that, you leave the initialization bit outside the just sitting there in global scope, and then you well, I generally have a thing called let's just say setup GUI, right? And we'll use that convention in this. So then you make that method. And you whack that code in there, which means that they're all set up. And now you want to make them react to button pushes. Again, for the aid of speed, I'm just going to steal that from any project that has it. There's one. I'll just take that, and then I'll lock it down here. And for now, we only need the login one. We'll call that login button listener. I'll put that there, and I'll actually even take code from up here. I know it's easy to remember and type, but it's still easier for me to do that, I think. And then copy that over, so I get the login button. Set the on-click listener to this one. That means it gets called here. And what happens? Well, we don't quite know yet what we want to happen, but what we want to do first is just check that that works. So let's do another build. Do these things in steps, otherwise you get confused. So what should happen is whoop. When this comes up and I hit the login button, there you go, login button, listener button hit, so it's working. Now we're going to work out what we actually want to do, and what we do want to do is call an API to attempt to do the login. So I have to find the API docs. So now we have a login. Actually, I might cut this tutorial short now because it's going to involve putting the login details on the screen and that, and they won't want that. But as you've seen, this is how you set up the activity, this is how you declare your text views, and this is how you set an on-click listener to work. So I've linked everything up, and now what I'm going to do is actually do some tinkering with their API to call a method and send over the details and get back a login answer. But I think it's probably outside of the scope of this tutorial anyway, or this kind of tutorial. So I'm going to pause this now, and thanks for watching.